have a slightly different.
Okay, I'm trying to. Oh, there. Okay, great. It's a big room.
I have a way that we can save some administrative costs in healthcare.
Okay.
I work in the healthcare field, and whenever we have to credential a physician with an insurance company, it is a nightmare. There are so many different applications for all of the different insurance companies, and then you have to re-credential them every 3 months. This costs a lot of money and it's wasted time. So I hope that somewhere in the reform there can be a universal application for all of the insurance companies, and that it is sent into a database that is then accessible for all the insurance companies. Thank you.
Sometimes I go to the doctor to get things fixed, and he thinks it's his time to lobby. So I get longer appointments than most. But he points out he has 6 clerical staff, 2 docs, 1 physician's assistant, 2 nurses. So as many clerical staff as he does healthcare providers in the office. This bill actually, I think, proposes a good thing there, which is standardized billing across all private and public insurance. Same code, standardized. It's supposed to move toward electronic standardized billing as soon as possible. You might remember that part of the stimulus, I didn't really think it belonged in the stimulus because it hasn't been spent yet. We don't even know how we're going to get there yet, but there was money for healthcare IT to begin to implement this idea. But we are going there, but it's an excellent suggestion. That's not where we want to be spending our precious healthcare dollars. So any other in that? Right there. Yes, sir.
I guess I'm more concerned with the big picture, still. And could you explain how you would suggest that we accomplish the repayment of what I consider to be reckless spending by both Congress, prompted by the administration, that they've engaged in with bailouts and takeovers and tax and cap and tax, and now the infliction of the national health care, other than a huge tax increase on everyone, or drastic cutting of expenses, which I don't think is going to happen with Congress, or printing of money resulting in huge runaway inflation.
Okay. They're all very serious issues, and I've worried about those things for a long time. I was a balanced budget Democrat back in the 80s when when it wasn't fashionable, we did achieve real budget surpluses, not taking the Social Security surplus and spending it, but real surpluses for 2 years in 99 and 2000. Unfortunately, that was very ephemeral. There were people at that time talking about, gosh, we'll pay off our debt in 10 years, then what will we do? And we immediately got into cutting taxes, a war where for the first time in history we got into a war, which I thought was an unnecessary war in Iraq, and cut taxes. So we doubled our debt between 2000 and 2008. Then comes the TARP in the fall, and that was a bipartisan problem. They got stampeded. Henry Paulson stampeded the president, and the president stampeded the Democratic leaders of Congress, and they all rushed to bail out Wall Street. I said, look, I don't know that this is Armageddon financially, but I'm dubious about whether it's as big as you're saying we need to throw all this money at these firms on Wall Street. But if we have to do that, how about we have a plan that they pay it back themselves? And I offered that. We had a minuscule securities transfer tax from 1916 to 1966, 1/10 of 1%. Would have paid off the TARP bailout in 4 years, a 1/10 of 1% tax on security transfer. I thought that would be more fair way than borrowing against our future. That would have reduced the number we're dealing with by $700 billion. I voted against the stimulus because I have a rule in approaching these things. I'm not opposed to putting people back to work, making some investments and put people to work. I have my own prejudices about what works, and to me, it's roads, bridges, highways, transit systems, sewer systems, water systems, schools. It's investments that are going to have education too. And so what I said as we approach that bill, let's do things where if your grandchildren paying Kiddash in 30 years, why am I still paying for that money you borrowed back there in 08 or 09? You can say, well, that bridge you drove over today, we built that. Or, remember your education? We stopped huge cutbacks in public education through them. Those are investments in the future. A lot of the stuff in there was already tried. For the life of me, I don't know why we did it again. Tax cuts. We borrowed $340 billion to give mostly individuals $12 a week tax cut. Now, if you're unemployed, that's not going to help you get a job. It's not going to rebuild America. It's not going to fill in a pothole, but that's a lot of money to borrow. But you know, that and other tax cuts were included in the bill. There's other dubious spending. So I wanted to have something much more oriented toward investment. One quick story. I go up to Sweet Home in my district. They had me come up there because they needed a new water system. I'm in the water plant. It's kind of an interesting little, it has a whole bunch of levels that go down like this. It's full of sand and gravel. The water comes at the top. By the time it gets to the bottom, you can drink it. But it's a beautiful building, too. It's not like a factory. And I'm looking around, and finally I said, so who built this? They said, oh, it was built by the WPA. And it still works. And that same day, I went out to see a Head Start program, which was in a little old schoolhouse that is the school for public school in Corbett's for Head Start. And they showed me the plaque built by the WPA. Those are the kind of investments we should have been making in the stimulus to put people to work, that provide benefits for generations to come. Is the issue of cap and trade. You know, we had horrible problems in America with our rivers back in the 60s. We had rivers back east that burned, the Willamette was an open sewer. We said, not going to do that anymore. And we did it through the Clean Water Act and regulation. And what we did is we went out and said, we inventoried all the pollution, gave people schedules, and said, you're going to stop dumping stuff in the river. You got a schedule, and by the way, we'll be back. And if you don't meet the schedule, we're going to fine you. I believe that we do have a problem, and you may disagree in dealing with our with climate change and carbon dioxide emissions. But I think there's a much more rational, lower cost way of doing it than involving Wall Street. And cap and trade was first proposed by Enron. And remember Enron? Bankrupt, Ken Lay's gone, but you know, Enron, they first proposed cap and trade as far as anybody can tell. And I have on my website, if you visit there, hysterical statements from people on Wall Street saying, this is going to be bigger than the financial services, this is going to be so lucrative you can't believe it. In Europe, $60 billion a year of costs on their allocations and their offsets, and higher carbon emissions. So what do? Well, some people are getting rich, that's true, a few traders, but the people of Europe are paying more for everything, and they haven't lowered their carbon. I don't want to replicate that here, and the bill that was offered in the House will give us the same. So, and I sponsored a bill by Jim McDermott in Washington, which takes the good old-fashioned regulatory approach to deal with it. 474-424-778.